Hello, and welcome to the Permission to Breathe podcast, a transformative space dedicated to providing a sanctuary where you can inhale deeply and exhale freely, embracing your grief journey unapologetically. I am your host, Dr. Tammy Isaac, here with you every Monday to offer comfort, guidance, and hope. Together we'll navigate this path, finding moments to pause, reflect, and breathe. Let's begin this journey side by side. Today's episode of Permission to Breathe is sponsored by Aurora's Grief Journey, my new children's book about navigating loss and finding comfort. Aurora's Grief Journey follows a young girl who's learning to cope with the loss of her grandfather. Through heartfelt storytelling and faith-filled activities, the book helps children understand their feelings and provides families with practical ways to heal together. If you're looking for a gentle resource to support a child through grief, this book is the perfect place to start. You can grab your copy today on Amazon. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's continue this journey of healing together. Today's episode is one I think so many of us can relate to. We're diving into the complex relationship between grief and depression. These two emotions are often tangled together, and it can be hard to separate them, but knowing the difference can be a powerful tool for healing. So let's take a moment to breathe and give ourselves permission to feel and explore the path that grief and depression may take us down. And hopefully by the end, you'll have a bit more clarity and compassion for whatever it is you might be going through. Grief and depression are separate experiences, but both have symptoms of extreme sadness and can affect a person mentally and physically. Someone with grief may feel like their sadness is depression, but depression can result without any external catalyst. Research has shown that grief or social loss can lead to a major depressive disorder and other physiological conditions linking to depression. Theories also indicate that the grief neurological pathway can cause neurotransmitters to halt the reward system in the brain, which results in depression. When we talk about grief, grief results from losing someone or something close to a person, which can result in symptoms that feel like deep sadness or depression. Complicated grief or prolonged grief disorder can occur when such feelings do not fade over time. It is important to remember that both grief and depression are complex feelings for each person and do not need to fit neatly under any labels. When we talk about grief, we're talking about the natural response to loss. It's the deep emotional reaction we feel when someone or something important to us is no longer there. Grief often shows up in many forms. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one, a relationship, a job, or even a sense of who we once were. One thing to remember is that grief is unique for everyone. You might feel okay at one moment, only to be hit with a wave of sadness the next. Maybe a song plays that reminds you of them, or you see a place you used to go together. That's grief, gently reminding us of our connections to what we've lost. It's painful, but it's also incredibly human. Grief resulting from losing someone or something close to a person can result in symptoms that feel like deep sadness or even depression. Complicated grief or prolonged grief disorders can occur when such feelings do not fade over time. Now, depression is a bit different. Depression isn't just feeling sad or down. It's a persistent, often overwhelming feeling of hopelessness and heaviness. And unlike grief, which may come and go in waves, depression can feel like an endless fog. With depression, there's often a sense of emptiness and fatigue, as if The things that used to bring you joy no longer matter. You may find it hard to get out of bed or even care about things you once loved. And depression can be accompanied by a deep feeling of worthlessness, which is different from grief sadness. It's also worth noting that depression doesn't always have an obvious cause. You don't have to lose someone or something to experience it. It can just appear and just settle in. And while grief has a specific object, a person, a thing, an idea, depression doesn't always have that anchor. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 6 adults will have depression at some point in their lifetime. That's a lot. With various potential causes such as environmental, situational, genetics, biological, or psychological. And the National Institute of Mental Health states that depression is a severe mood disorder affecting how a person feels, thinks, or acts. The exact cause of depression is unknown, but it can result from issues with mood regulation in the brain, stressful life situations, genetics, and even the environment. Here's where it gets tricky. Grief and depression can overlap in many ways, which makes it easy for us to mistake one for the other. So, for instance, if you're grieving, you might go through a phase that looks a lot like depression. You may not want to socialize, or you might find yourself losing interest in things you once enjoyed, and that's normal. Grief can bring out these feelings without it necessarily being depression. The main similarities between grief and depression is the feeling of emotional pain and deep sadness. Some of the other similarities may also include crying often, feeling emotional distress, changes in your appetite, changes in sleeping habits, such as sleeping too much or too little, and having angry outbursts. The consequences of grief and depression are also very similar. Having either may result in a person becoming withdrawn from loved ones, doing little things that give them pleasure, or finding themselves unable to live a daily life. There's what we also call complicated grief. And complicated grief, also known as prolonged grief, is a mental health condition that involves an intense and prolonged response to the death of a loved one. This is when grief doesn't seem to ease with time. Instead, what happens is it persists and then it begins to look and feel more like depression, affecting your ability to function in your daily life. And complicated grief is like being in a ongoing heightened state of mourning that keeps you from healing and living your everyday life. Signs and symptoms of complicated grief may include intense sorrow, pain, and rumination over the loss of your loved one. Focus on little else but your loved one's death. Extreme focus on reminders of the loved one or excessive avoidance of reminders. Intense and persistent longing or pinging for the deceased. Problems accepting the death. Numbness or detachment. Bitterness about your loss. Feeling that life holds no meaning or purpose. Lack of trust in others. Or an inability to enjoy life or think back on positive experiences with your loved one. Now, complicated grief also may be indicated if you continue to have trouble carrying out normal routines, if you're isolated from others and withdraw from social activities, experience depression, deep sadness, guilt, or self-blame, believe that you did something wrong or could have prevented the death, feel the feel life isn't worth living without your loved one, and wish you had died along with your loved one. And it's important to know that up to 10% of adults will experience prolonged grief disorder. And those with, more than likely, those with a previous history of depression or other conditions such as bipolar disorder, or more likely to experience prolonged grief disorder. So it's important, if you find that grief isn't letting up or if it's disrupting your life significantly, it may be time to seek support, and just know that it's okay to ask for help. Are you grieving and feel like you're struggling alone? You don't have to walk this path by yourself. Book a virtual session with Dr. Tammy Isaac at Breathe Grief Counseling Center. Visit us online at www.breathegriefcounselingcenter.com. Dr. Isaac will help you put your emotions into words. She'll help you reduce the feeling of isolation. She'll help you understand that everyone grieves differently, and also help you prevent unhealthy coping mechanisms. Take control of your life with world-class counseling sessions today with Dr. Tammy Isaac. Grief is a natural human response to loss and a result of the emotions a person feels when someone or something that is loved is no longer there. Grief's intensity usually lessens and eventually will leave you feeling better. Depression, however, may have no identifiable cause and can last indefinitely. Let's talk about the main differences. The main differences include: grief has an identifiable cause or root, but depression does not. Grief is painful emotions that come in waves, but also contain happy memories of the loved one, while depression has consistently negative emotions. Grief, self-esteem is not affected, but with depression, it has feelings of self-loathing and low self-esteem. Grief is a natural process and an emotional response, while depression is a diagnosable condition. Grief can still feel pleasure. Depression, there's an inability to feel pleasure. And grief has feelings that will subside over some time, but may return in waves as time passes. However, depression can last for a long time, with symptoms becoming more and more intense. So, why does it matter to know the difference between grief and depression? Well, because each require a different approach to healing. Grief is often helped by support, by giving yourself space and permission to feel the sadness and honor the loss. Grief is a part of our healing, and it's a journey that we move through. However, depression, though, is a medical condition. It might need more than time. It may require therapy, medication, or other forms of treatment. And depression is not something that we can always work through alone. And it's okay to recognize that reaching out for help doesn't mean that we're weak. It means we're strong enough to seek what we need. And I want you to remember this: if you have feelings of sadness that don't seem to shift, or if you find that even basic activities feel too hard, it's okay to seek help. Sometimes we think it's grief, but it might just actually be something more. And there's no shame in that. It's important to recognize that my grief may be something more at this point. It's not letting up. I don't see any lessening effects here. I just seem to be getting worse and lost in where I am. And so it's important that you take time to reach out to those that are able to help support you through that process. Often a person may experience grief so intense that they feel symptoms of depression. So treatment or coping methods for depression can include medications, but it is up to the patient and doctor to decide whether treating grief with medication is right. The American Psychological Association says coping with grief can involve partaking in self-care, talking openly about the loved one, celebrating their life, basically, accepting the feelings and understanding how they may return in waves, talking with a licensed professional about emotions, helping others cope with their grief also, and psychotherapy, which can help a person understand their emotions and find ways to manage them. Now, depression treatment can also include psychotherapy, but other treatments are also included. Can help antidepressant medication, cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal therapy, counseling. All of these things are some practical steps and resources that can be used to help us cope with grief and with our depression. Now, you may be wondering, what do I do next? Well, I want to share just a few things that might be able to help you practically. So, first, if you're in any of these places, you want to give yourself permission to feel what comes up, whether it's grief or depression or a mix of both. Sometimes just acknowledging it out loud can be the first step toward your healing. The second thing I want you to do is reach out. Maybe it's a friend or a family member, or perhaps it's a counselor or a support group. You don't have to walk through what you're going through alone. And there are people genuinely who want to be there for you. You just have to reach out. The third thing I want you to do is know your resources. If you're experiencing depression, mental health support is available through counselors, therapy groups, and online resources. There's always help, and you are worthy of receiving it. Please remember, you are worthy of receiving the help and the support that you need to get you through, whether you're grieving or find yourself in a place of depression. Remember, whether it's grief or depression, healing is a journey. So I want you to give yourself some grace and space to breathe through what you're experiencing. Thank you for joining me in this episode. If you're grieving, remember that your pain is valid and part of honoring what you've lost. If you're struggling with depression, please know that you're not alone and there is hope, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. Every emotion has its place in our journey, and recognizing what you're experiencing can be one of the first steps toward your healing. I hope this episode has brought you a bit of comfort and clarity. And as always, you have permission to breathe. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Permission to Breathe podcast. I hope today created space for you to breathe and find peace on your journey. I invite you to join me again next Monday for another episode as we continue to navigate this path together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share the podcast. Until next time, take care and keep breathing unapologetically.